Kicking off the list at number 10, Thor. Yeah, we'll get him out of the way early since most of you are already pretty aware of the god of thunder from Down Under. But if you check out the other books about him, not comic books, he's one of the most popular figures in Norse mythology. He was the big man upstairs, according to the Scandinavians in the late Viking Age. They truly believed that thunder was Thor and that lightning was the work of his magical hammer, Mjolnir, which we've seen countless times by now on the big screen. But one of Thor's other Norse pieces of equipment were mentioned briefly in Spider-Man Homecoming. See, Happy references Thor's magical belt, which had a good laugh in the theaters, but those who are up to speed on the Norse mythology knows that that belt was actually a reference to the belt of strength. The belt is said to double the strength of the god, so let's hope that we found that one after moving day, because I would love to see Thor push all that fat and buckle up. And then he'll get twice as strong. It'll be twice as badass. And before we head over to number 9, if you guys could go ahead and smash that like button because it goes a long way for us over here at our studio. You guys rock. Now back to some badass Norse gods. Number 9, Odin. Thor's dad, of course, the main god in Norse mythology. Why not break down some more Asgardian goodness while we're on the topic? Odin Borson, the one-eyed all-father, is the god of death, war, wisdom, poetry, divination, and magic. Yeah, he couldn't leave like 3 of those to some other guys, eh? He wanted them all to himself. That's the god way. His 2 ravens, who we've seen quite a bit in the MCU kind of make a little brief appearance, were among the Norse gods' pets of choice, with the names Hugin and Munin. But who we didn't see were his other pets. See, Odin also owned Sleipnir, an 8-legged horse, and Geri and Freki, 2 wolves. Now, I could watch a movie with just those animals right there. It's like Dr. Dolittle on crack. Debit, done, deal, IMAX. Let's see it. So yeah, Odin was the god of war, but he wasn't the warrior type. You know, even in the comic books, that's the case as well. Thor was the one who went knocking. He's the one who knocks. Watching Breaking Bad, it's so good for the first time. He's got weapons for himself also. This time in the form of a spear that he named Gungnir, which rhymes, so you know it's gonna do some damage. Actually, the spear never misses its target. That's part of the whole deal, the god deal when you buy spears, which is a little bit unfair if you ask me. Number 8, Hercules.
Oh, Hercules, 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 Hercules.
The son of Zeus, who I'll get into a little bit later, is also the king of the Olympian gods. He made his first Marvel comic book appearance in Young Allies back in 1945. Yeah, he was Marvel. He had a pretty wild upbringing as well. I mean, most of these gods do. So basically his father Zeus snuck off one night and he shacked up with the mortal woman Alcmene. And he took the appearance of her husband, and then out popped Hercules. So he lied about his appearance to get into bed. So he's kind of a dick. And then when he had Hercules, he was first named Alcaeus, okay? He was an average Joe when it came to the mythological gods. He has human level problems. He just has god level solutions, you know? Makes for quite a show. So with his strength and his stamina, he was able to wrestle and beat death and complete these 12 impossible tasks. And yes, one of those impossible tasks were getting all the cups out of my room in one trip. God, there's so many.
At number 7 is Ares. The god of war has come in and out of both Marvel and DC comic events, and although he is more commonly known as a character from ancient mythology, he has made enough appearances in the comics to appear in the MCU at this point, I would say at least. As we all know, Thor 2 is a character that was pulled from ancient mythology, so to reunite Thor with another Greek god at this point in his MCU run would just be a cool homage to his roots. And of course, Ares being the god of war and a villain by nature, this could open the door for some pretty even matchups for the other gods in the storyline. I think the presence of Gorr the God Butcher could give us a cool look into how nuanced Gorr's motivations are as well. Would he seek out Ares as one of his targets, or would he use him as a support system to first take down Thor and Odin? Hopefully if they included Ares, they would also throw in Hercules to even the playing field, or they could just not include either of them, which is probably what's actually gonna happen, unfortunately. But I still hope, maybe see some Ares. At least not in this one, maybe the next one, we'll see.
Number 6, Loki. Of course, died at the hands of Heimdall. Who knows, maybe we'll see this as one of his little time mishaps in the upcoming show. I think he's in for a heap of hurt in all those episodes. So Loki is known to most as the trickster, okay? His methods were pretty wild in Norse mythology. He could change his gender, shape, whatever, you name it. He would often help Odin and Thor, but in doing so, he caused embarrassment for them. Sounds all too familiar, my friend. See, the other gods weren't a fan of him either. Apparently, he would just show up uninvited to their banquets and then drink all their jungle juice. So basically every Nick that we knew in high school. That's what Loki was. Loki's also considered a god of fire. Remember that 8-legged horse that I mentioned earlier that belonged to Odin? Yeah, Loki straight up gave birth to that. Ouch, that's a lot of legs. That's a lot of legs. The doctor's like, I think it's a hairy octopus. I don't know what to tell you here. It's got like 9 legs. It's got like 8 legs. I don't know. He also loved the pet life as well, which most of these gods do. They have their own little cool pets. Among Loki's was Jormungand, the serpent that surrounds the world, and then Fenrir, the wolf who we see eat a few right hooks from Banner. But he also hooked up with the giant Angerboda, the distress bringer, so he's quite a character. He gets around.
Number 5. Vidar. Vidar was the son of Odin and Grid, the storm giantess. Just because Odin later ended up with Frigga did not mean he didn't have children with other women. Back in the 90s when Marvel was trying to make Thor, and everyone else for that matter, look super edgy in comics, we learned of Vidar's fate. He ended up being banished soon after Odin married Frigga. Later on, following the events of Ragnarok, it was discovered that Vidar had perished during the fray. Vidar also at one point lost his love Solveig while banished by Odin for being part giant, part Asgardian. And yet because he was neither, giants ended up attacking and killing his wife. Her fate he blamed on Odin, who cast him out and yet still kept mad Loki close. I gotta be honest, this seems pretty unfair, Odin. Why'd you do this? Also, just a quick apology for all of those names that I potentially said wrong. I'm trying here.
Number 4. Odysseus. A Greek warrior who fought in the Trojan War and alongside Achilles when the citadel of Amazonia was attacked. He made his first DC Comics appearance back in 1942 in Leading Comics, and in Greek mythology, he was king of the island of Ithaca. He's the great-grandson of Hermes, the Olympian god, and father to Telemachus, husband of Penelope. I like this guy a lot. He was actually one of the warriors in the Trojan horse. Like, he was inside there, like, ready to go. God, I would pay any amount of money to know what the inside of that horse smelled like. Oh my god. Surprise! We had the smelliest horse in history. Enjoy it. Go drink. Cover your nose, but also enjoy it.
At number 3 is the Midgard serpent, or Jormungand. For those of you who don't already know, this is a different serpent than the one mentioned previously. This one doesn't have a human form. It's an immortal, snake-like beast that is known as the son of Loki and sorceress Angerboda. This creature is a recurring opponent to Thor, and his influence is immense. He's one of those bad guys that never actually gets killed, with the gods only being able to banish or imprison him. He's so powerful that just by moving around, he causes earthquakes and tidal waves on Earth, and he also has the ability to create complex illusions that are capable of deceiving even the most powerful of beings. He also typically appears in his ethereal form, during which he is basically invisible to his opponents. Even in his final battle with Thor in the comics, he doesn't fully appear in corporeal form, with some of his body still in a spiritual plane of existence. Jormungand is also a god killer, with his venom being lethal to any and all gods if he lands an attack just right. So if he did appear in the new movie, perhaps Gore would be able to use the creature to his advantage, before ultimately needing to turn on the serpent himself. That is, if he were consistent with his grudge towards gods. We'll see.
And number 2, Zeus. Alright, one of the gods of Olympus and most commonly known as the god of the storms. He is the father of Wonder Woman and was actually killed by Darkseid once he came out of hiding to save his daughter. So while him and Darkseid were hashing it out, there was a crazy storm happening all around them, right? Because he's the god of storms. You gotta make it look like a cool rainy step-up dance battle, you know? Gotta have that appeal. Wonder Woman and Zeus' emotional bond was the key to Zeus' spirit being freed from the evil Darkseid. Love. So powerful. And Zeus was the king of the Greek gods, and he lived at the top of Mount Olympus, married to Hera. And of all the mythological gods, Zeus has always interested me the most. I mean, the guy hucks lightning bolts. And if that's not cool enough, he has a winged horse, Pegasus, that carries the lightning bolts around. And he has a trained eagle that picks them up. Another cool ability he has is to also mimic anybody. He could alter his voice and shapeshift into animals, and rumor has it, if you were to get him upset at you, he just might have turned you into an animal as payback. Which I'd say is better than a lightning bolt to the neck. I don't know, I could deal with being an animal for a little bit. I could be a turtle for an hour. I can't pull a lightning bolt out of my neck. That's way worse. Zeus was the 6th child from the Titan gods Cronus and Rhea. and Cronus actually ate the first 5 kids because they were deemed too powerful. Yeah, he just gobbled them up. What a nice guy. So Rhea hid Zeus after his birth, and now the other children weren't dead, okay? They were just in his belly, just hanging out, having a belly party. So when Zeus got older, he disguised himself to drink a potion that would make him cough up his brothers and sisters. And those brothers and sisters being Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, Hestia, and Hera. Quite the reunion if you ask me. But hey, there's your family, meet them, enjoy. And finally, number 1, Wonder Woman, the daughter of Zeus, one of the biggest and baddest DC characters ever. She hit the comic book pages for the first time with All-Star Comics 8 back in 1941, and she just killed the game. She was actually one of the first superheroes to get her own comic line. First there was Superman, then Batman, and then her. Bam. Now of course, her mythological background is the most dazzling detail of Diana Prince's story. See, in the comics, she's a founding member of the Justice League after she made the leap to serve justice in a man's world, leaving her home, Themyscira. The Princess of the Amazons also wields a few tools to help her feats. The lasso of truth among the coolest. She also uses bracelets of submission created from the remains of Zeus's shield, and these help her keep a hand on the wheel when it comes to balancing her powers. She also of course obtains the royal tiara, which she at one point cuts Superman's throat with, and she has an invisible jet because, well, of course.
Number 10, Keep. In a strange way, Keep is a child of Asgardia, created by Amora the Enchantress using Donald Blake, but was also Enchantress's lover. So yeah, she was like his mother and his lover. Blech. Keep would do anything for Enchantress and loved her dearly and unconditionally. He was also strong enough to take on Thor in battle, and although he didn't win the day, he at least survived and held his own. Keep was a character created by Matt Friction and Pepe Larraz, who appeared in a few story arcs where we got to see him created by Enchantress and become her ally as she fought against Thor, using Donald Blake to torment him, and also attempted to put Thor on trial. However, we haven't seen Keep for some time in the comics since. Probably because he was kind of weird. But also he was kind of cool, so I don't know. I don't know if anyone else remembers Keep. Number 9, Tess Black. Tess Black is one of the daughters of Loki, whom he sired with a mortal human woman. However, we never learn of her mother's name. We just know that she is Loki's daughter and is living in New York when Morwen, a sorceress of chaos, takes hold of her, using her as a host body. When Morwen learns of Tess Black's origins, she says that this explains why her strength has been bolstered and improved, since Tess is technically a demigoddess. Although, while in her mortal form, we haven't seen her wield any of her powers generally known to belong to someone of such strength, though that could simply be because she's completely unaware that she's related to the Asgardian god of mischief. Spider-Man and Loki teamed up to take down Morwen, but following that, Loki made sure Tess had no memory of the experience or of her relation to him. So she's probably just wandering around right now as like a normal human. And before we move on to this next spot, just a reminder to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help us out here at the channel, and thank you to everyone who's already done that. Thank you. Number 8, Tauren. Tauren is the daughter of Sif and Thor in the animated universe of Earth 555326, belonging to Next Avengers Heroes of Tomorrow. Tauren learned that Ultron had defeated the Avengers and ended up mostly being raised and trained by surviving member Tony Stark. When Tony was kidnapped, she helped to rescue him and also joined her fellow young Next Avengers team in an attempt to recruit the surviving Bruce Banner to their cause as Hulk. In the end, it was revealed her father had actually been with her all along in spirit, as he was actually safe in Asgard and had left Tauren alone on Earth merely to help his daughter learn humility, as his father Odin had done to him before her. Thor returned to her just as she needed him on the Bifrost Bridge and offered Tauren a place in Asgard where she would live as its rightful princess, but she decided not to go with him, instead choosing to return to her fellow friends and heroes. Instead, Thor gifted her new Asgardian armor to take back with her.
Number 7, Heimdall, the god of light and dawn, hence the gold color. He looks very nice. Lovely presentation. He's known as the watchman of the gods, okay? This is pretty accurate in the comic book form as well. See, he guarded the Bifrost. He's basically the door guy for Asgard. So Loki and Heimdall met their fate just minutes apart in the opening scenes of Avengers Infinity War, but what's wild about their deaths being so close together in the movie is that in ancient mythology, Loki and Heimdall both killed each other during Ragnarok. The big war with all the gods, right? Ragnarok, big thing. Also, the best Marvel movie ever, hands down. So he obtained some pretty cool gear as well. I mean, he has Hofund, the great sword that we see that opens up the Bifrost, and he also has a horn, appropriately named Gjallarhorn, which is so loud, the loudest horn ever, and if you hear this horn from whatever realm you're in, it basically means that the giants are coming, so get ready to rumble. And no, I don't mean the New York Giants. Although that would be still pretty terrifying.
Number 6. Hela. Hela, like in Norse mythology, is believed to be the daughter of Loki, as well as in Marvel Comics. Although in the MCU, we see a different version of her in contrast to the main continuity of Earth 616, where in the MCU she is instead presented as having an origins to be Thor's long-lost sister, as opposed to his niece, which also makes her the sister as opposed to the daughter of Loki. Hela was prophesied to be a great danger to Asgard, and as such was made the ruler of Hell and the goddess of the dead. However, Odin wanted to maintain rule over the souls of Asgard and the souls of those who paid tribute to the Asgardian gods, worshipping them. This only made Hela vengeful towards her family and made her long for the souls of Asgard, and especially Odin, and usually Thor. Everyone wants Thor's soul, it's a hot commodity.
At number 5, I'm putting Serpent, or Kul Borson. Introduced during the Fear Itself storyline, Kul Borson is Odin's brother and Thor's uncle naturally, but he's more commonly known as the Norse god of fear. When he's freed from an underwater prison by Red Skull's daughter Sin, he makes it his work to turn many well-known Marvel superhumans into evil henchmen. This would include Juggernaut, Absorbing Man, and the Hulk, just to name a few. And his influence as a Thor villain is so extensive that I think we should expect to see him in the MCU at some point, whether it's the new sequel or not. Serpent would be a perfect addition to the MCU since he's both an extremely powerful and overwhelming force against Thor and his allies, but also, and more importantly, because he's part of Thor's family. So the character would offer great opportunities for both drama as well as epic action sequences, and maybe even a crossover with these henchmen listed before. He also turns into a giant snake, which would just be pretty badass visual for the VFX team.
Number 4. Sif. Lady Sif is not just of Asgard, she is also an Asgardian warrior goddess. She is known for being a strong and fearsome warrior and noble fighter alongside her beloved Thor. While they have had an on and off relationship for some time, it seems she is often tormented by Thor's brother Loki because of Thor's general undying love for Sif. Originally, Sif had blonde hair, but Loki actually cut it all off to spite Thor, and then was made to give Sif back her hair again. However, instead of giving her golden hair, he had long black strands of night woven into hair for her. However, Thor loved her even more with dark hair, so the joke was on him. Loki has also possessed Sif's body before just to get back at Thor. Despite all of this torment, however, Sif still remains a fearsome warrior who rarely shies away from a fight or from conflict in general, even if it means pointing a sword at Kid Loki.
And number 3, Lady Sif. The goddess was known mainly for being the wife of the storm god Thor. Her name literally means relation by marriage, and it's said that she had a hand in the creation of Thor's hammer. In the Marvel Universe, we see her played by Jamie Alexander, and she's not the husband of Thor. Yet, who knows? Thor 4, we might dip into that territory. Hopefully, I mean, she's great. And she couldn't do Ragnarok, unfortunately, due to scheduling conflicts, so I feel like they're gonna make up for some lost cause there in Thor 4. Let's do it. In the MCU, she was the warrior goddess on the Vanir, the wise god of old. Her brother is actually Heimdall, a fellow Vanir, and she becomes known as the goddess of war, which is way cooler than, hey, I married a guy, you know? Bit of a better classification. So if you want to get a good look at Sif's journey from the start, she entered Marvel's comic book family with Journey into Mystery issue 102 back in 1964.
Number 2. Loki. Despite being born of the Frost Giants, Loki is still widely acknowledged as an Asgardian, having been adopted at a young age by Odin and Frigga. He was raised as one of their own, and although he has often felt like an outsider and been a thorn in their side and the side of his brother Thor, Loki is still considered very much an important member of the family. While he has tricked his family members on multiple occasions and put them in harm's way, he has also sought to help them too many times. We've also seen many different versions of Loki over the years, some who are kinder to his family members, while others that are more cruel. Him being such an ever-changing character is also what makes him one of the most interesting Asgardians out there. Number 1. Thor. Although Thor is now largely recognized as being a man grown, he is also the son of Odin, which makes him a child of Asgard, back when he was a child and even now. Thor is one of the mightiest Asgardians and also the one who has the closest connection to Midgard and Earth, despite his father's general lack of interest in that place. In fact, this tends to be a point of contention between the two, where Odin often wishes his son was less attached to humans and more interested in serving the interests of Asgard alone. When it comes to Asgardians, Thor is one of the most notable and easily recognized. Number 10. Loki. One person I am really still hoping to see in Love and Thunder is the god of mischief, Loki. I know main continuity Loki is dead in the MCU and gone, but there are still a ton of variants out there, including the new main alternate continuity variant from the Loki series. Heck, I'd even take a cameo from Kid Loki or Alligator Loki in this. Any of the Lokis, really. After all, Kid Loki does end up on the Young Avengers team, which is obviously slowly being introduced in the MCU, likely so they can eventually, join up and form the Young Avengers. Although he's not part of the original roster of that team, he is a prominent member later on. Boastful Loki or Classic Loki might be cool. Sylvie even might be an interesting one to have show up, as I think she'd really surprise Thor. Also, I wonder if, like in one of the comic book alternate universes where the two heroes are actually sisters in that universe, Sylvie's Thor was also maybe a female version of Thor. I'll even take Loki in flashback form if that's my only option. Just give me some more Loki, please.
At number 9 is Surtur. Although he's already appeared in Thor Ragnarok, I think this god needs to at least be referenced in the new movie once again if it's going to be consistent with the comics. Because Surtur, aka the Lord of Muspelheim, aka King of the Fire Giants, is an immortal being that truly never dies. He continues to make appearances throughout the Thor comics, and much of the time the conflicts seem to escalate to a point where Surtur is the be-all and end-all of basically all life in the cosmos. I mean, his sword is capable of destroying whole dimensions in one swing. So if this new movie needed perhaps a common enemy for both Gorr and Thor, or an overarching threat to the greater good of Asgard and beyond, Surtur would be the character to bring back to make that happen. I do think Gorr the God Butcher will be enough of a threat, but just in case they wanted to crank this sequel to 11, Surtur is there, and Clancy Brown is there to voice him again. I like Clancy Brown.
Number 8. Gaia. Gaia could be another interesting goddess to see in Thor 4, and I know that we said gods at this list, but goddesses, gods, we're covering all the genders in this, okay? In certain origin tales, Gaia is actually the mother of Thor, having been the mate of Odin in the guise of a woman named Jord. This is also why Thor is so attached to Midgard, as Gaia is the elder god of Earth, representing the planet and shaping it as she sees fit. In fact, I think she was even maybe responsible for the dinosaurs being gone. That was Gaia. Gaia was like, man will exist now. Ta-da! Gaia is also linked with Earth in an important way. She is a protector of the planet and also represents it, so if she were threatened, Earth would be threatened as well. Thor already had a mother in the MCU, Frigga or Frigg if you will, but even just threatening Gaia would put Gorr directly at odds with Thor, and would likely make Thor take the threat of Gorr very seriously. As harming Gaia could mean the destruction of Earth, which would also serve well to elevate the stakes, as Thor Odinson and Jane Foster Thor likely are going to have to team up to take on Gorr. Number 7. Magni. Magni comes to us from the alternate universe of Earth 3515, one that Thor realized he had to destroy because of how much he had royally messed it up. In this alternate future reality, Thor and Asgard ended up conquering Earth, facing off with Earth's mightiest heroes and winning against them. Magni was his son, born after this great victory. Magni's father is Thor and his mother is Amora the Enchantress. Magni ended up falling in love with a mortal woman, and through this experience realized all the wrongdoings of his father in ruling Earth and ruling it pretty unjustly. He ended up allying with the exiled Lady Sif, and together the two confronted the unworthy Thor about it. In the end, this confrontation and an unexpected attack made Thor realize the error of his ways, and he undid the events that led to this future, erasing it, and also erasing Magni, sadly. Bye. Number 6. Khonshu. We now know Khonshu from the Disney Plus streaming series Moon Knight. We also know that the Egyptian gods exist. Wow. Well, a lot of them got messed up by Amit's and Arthur Harrow's attempt to basically rule the world, feeding on the souls of those destined to do ill. Khonshu survived that battle and is still out there. While Mark Spector and his other persona Stephen Grant believe they're actually free from Khonshu's influence, we learn that Khonshu still seems to have a hold over their shared physical form at the end of the series, with the reveal of Jake Lockley, limo driver slash assassin, the third persona residing within Mark. So it's possible that Khonshu could become the target of Gorr in Love and Thunder. In fact, many people expect that Moon Knight and Thor 4 could be more connected than they seem, due to the Egyptian pantheon being a big part of that series.
Number 5. Achilles! Which you can't say, you have to yell, that's the rule. Whenever you say Achilles, you have to yell it as loud as you can. Making his first appearance in Wonder Woman back in 1944, Achilles, of course, the Greek hero, known as the greatest warrior of all of Greece. But when some think of Achilles, Brad Pitt is the face that pops up. That's not too bad, it's a pretty nice face.
Achilles!
So when Achilles was a wee baby, a prophecy had stated that he would die young. So his mother, Thetis, dipped him in the river Styx by his ankles, so invulnerable powers were given to him, and it was all over his body except, of course, his Achilles heel, which is just his heel. Achilles heel is Achilles heel. Along comes a timely arrow, boom, and then the heel gets hit, and then he bites the bullet. I mean, just dip your toes in, come on, always do a temperature dip. You always gotta do a toe dip for good luck.
Number 4. One Above All. The One Above All could be a super cool god to see in Thor, Love and Thunder, and just in general. For those unfamiliar, the One Above All is literally the god of the Marvel Universe, often presented as being one of the supreme and ultimate good gods with the most power within the Marvel multiverse and beyond. The One Above All is often depicted as resembling Jack Kirby or Stan Lee, a couple of the main founding fathers over at Marvel Comics. RIP. Considering that Stan Lee could now be digitally recreated and Disney has rights to use his likeness, this might be a cool or perhaps a disturbing one to have, depending on how it's done. That is, if we want this god to look like either Stan Lee or Jack Kirby, but yeah. Granted, I wouldn't want Gorr killing the One Above All, but I also don't think he'd be able to do that unless we really want to see him as being like crazy OP. I don't even know what would happen if you did that. It might be cool just to have some nod to the existence of this major godly presence within the MCU. Although when it comes to Stan Lee continuing to potentially do cameos in the MCU past his, his physical demise, let me know how you feel about that possibility in the comments. It hasn't been announced, but we know that Disney does have the rights to use his likeness from the Stan Lee universe, who actually own that, and I certainly have some complex feelings about this whole thing in general. Number 3. Brunhilda. Although we don't know specifically who Brunhilda's parents were, we do know that she is an Asgardian goddess and therefore a child of Asgard. She was chosen by Odin himself to become his Valkyrie and was given the responsibility of guiding and choosing the warriors who died in battle with honor to go up to Valhalla. She was in fact the leader of the Valkyrie, an entire group of warrior goddesses tasked with this important responsibility to lift up the fallen mortals who worshipped the Asgardian gods and were deemed worthy in death. It's also believed that Brunhilda was cast out to become a mortal woman for defying Odin and ended up as a lover to one of Thor's mortal reincarnations, Siegfried. Although neither she nor Thor remembers these events, as Odin wiped their memories of them when he gave them immortal life once more, following both their mortal deaths. She is currently believed dead after dying at the hands of Malekith during the War of the Realms event. Sad. Number 2. Hercules. I mean, I'm still waiting for Hercules to make an appearance in any of the trailers we get, but as this movie is quickly approaching, I think this might be a cameo that is actually kept as a surprise. Oh my goodness, something that's a surprise in a Marvel movie. So rare. Or Hercules might not appear in the Greek pantheon as well, because I think they're all gonna die. Obviously we don't want that for Hercules, who is not only a powerful and mighty hero, but is also a fairly good friend to the X-Men as well later on, and the Avengers, taking the younger X-students in at Avengers Academy at the behest of Captain America during the events of Avengers vs. X-Men, back when Hercules was actually filling in as faculty there. Hercules is actually a really popular hero in Marvel canon, at least among other supers. In addition to being a friend of the X-Men, he's been a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers, S.H.I.E.L.D., Defenders, and of course, the God Squad. I'm really hoping we see the God Squad in this. Also, in the alternate reality of Earth 12025, Hercules is actually the romantic partner of James Howlett, aka alternate Wolverine.
Finally, at number 1 is King Phoenix, God of Fire. As much as I doubt this character is actually going to appear in Thor Love and Thunder, a guy can dream. And the only reason why I say this is that I see no signs that this story is going to jump into the other reality in which old King Thor lives and exists. And even if they did, I don't imagine that they'd make an attempt to introduce the Phoenix Force into the mix, considering how busy the movie already seems to be. Because if you're unaware of who this character is, or if you missed my Thor variants list previously on the channel, King Phoenix, God of Fire is a mixture of both old King Thor and the Phoenix Force. And the result is a supercharged, overpowered variation of Thor that I can imagine would make easy work of some of Thor's otherwise unbeatable enemies. Now, although I don't suspect anything like this could happen in the new movie dropping in July, I think it's inevitable that we'll at least see old King Thor at some point in a future MCU project. Or maybe in the after credits scene or something like that. But I may be wrong, so if you have a hunch that this new movie could include the older version of Thor, please let me know in the comments, because this has got to be my favorite of Thor's variants. And I just think it would be really great to see a mature, aged version of Thor with years of wisdom under his belt. And then adding Phoenix Force would just be the cherry on top, but I'd settle for old King Thor as well.